One of the areas you need to concentrate on for the exam is the build-up to the 1905 revolution. Why was there a revolution, and what are the consequences? There are four main causes of the 1905 revolution. We'll start with the long-term causes. Firstly, some blame has to lie with the Tsar himself. Arguably, if he was a better leader, a more adequate leader, the people would not feel the need to rise against him. So what led the people to do this? The Russian people had suffered turbulence under Alexander III's reign. Revolutionaries were hunted down and everyone was repressed by a strong leader. Nicholas was not a strong leader. He was unwilling to make any concessions to the people, and change could only come from him. Revolutionary groups existed underground and grew in popularity as literacy in towns increased. More people were unhappy with Nicholas's poor leadership and felt that the only way change could happen was if the Tsar was removed. People also felt that the Russo-Japanese War was a mistake, but more on this later. The social and economic situation was equally a cause. The people were driven to desperate measures. They suffered heavy under redemption payments, taxes and tariffs under the VAT system. During the Great Spurt, the population increased, which put pressure on land. Increased migration into towns meant that workers were living in overcrowded, unsafe accommodation, and their working conditions were equally poor. Long hours, low pay, unsafe conditions. Nicholas refused to make any changes, and so the people felt that they had to do something drastic to stop the situation getting even worse. It was the social and economic problems which led the people to form a petition asking for reforms from the Tsar, and this leads us to our short-term causes. The workers, under stress from poor conditions, made a petition to give to the Tsar. They were led by a man called Father Gapon. They believed that if only the Tsar knew how desperate they were, he would make reforms and change things. As God's appointed leader, surely he would want to help his people, as father of the nation. They went on a march to the Winter Palace where the Tsar resided to hand him the petition for improved living and working conditions. But Nicholas wasn't home, and the palace guards became nervous by the sheer volume of protesters. The guards fired at the people, who immediately scattered down Nevsky Prospect. This event became known as Bloody Sunday, and is considered a catalyst to the revolution. Finally, all these problems were set against the backdrop of the Russo-Japanese War. It was suggested that a short successful war against the inferior Japanese would unite the country behind the Tsar and distract them from the social and economic problems. Nicholas would win, expand Russia's territory and prestige, and gain an ice-free port in Korea. Nicholas underestimated the Japanese. They had been modernising, and despite being a much smaller country than Russia, could win the war easily. Russia lost at vital battles like Port Arthur, the Battle of Mukden, and more significantly their Baltic fleet at Tsushima. However, most of Russia's defeats happened during the revolution rather than before it, and perhaps is considered a lesser cause. The revolution itself happened in response to Bloody Sunday. By the end of January, every major city was affected, and 400,000 workers were on strike. The socialist revolutionaries organised violence against government officials and assassinated the Tsar's uncle. The Minister of the Interior, Boligin, came up with proposals known as the February Manifesto, but these proposals were rejected and discontent continued after the defeat of Mukden. National minorities took the chance to assert themselves as independent states, and in May the Liberals formed the Union of Unions to unite all groups in common cause wanting change. As the year progressed, so too did the rioting, and by October, Russia was paralysed by strike action. In October, the St. Petersburg Soviet set up as a workers' council and a direct challenge to the Tsar. The Soviets spread to various cities. It was only when the war was ending that Nicholas could use troops to put down the unrest and bring an end to the revolution. However, the army was not enough. Nicholas had to make some reforms too, and these were known as the October Manifesto. One of the most notable incidents was the Potemkin mutiny in June 1905. The Potemkin battleship mutinied after refusing to eat maggot-infested meat. They sailed the ship to Odessa, where the people were protesting. Fearing that the navy and the people may join in common cause, Nicholas ruthlessly put down the uprising using his loyal Cossacks. This was depicted in Sergei Eisenstein's battleship Potemkin. Despite this mutiny, the navy did stay loyal, and the revolution finally came to an end.